The patient lies on the steel table, a single, clear drop of water under a flickering industrial light. For millennia, this was a human right, a gift from the earth. But tonight, the autopsy reveals a barcode etched into its molecular structure. Water is no longer life, it is a corporate asset. Welcome to 2026, the year the global water cartel officially finalized its takeover of the world's largest aquifers. We are dissecting a $500 billion strategic maneuver where corporations turned scarcity into a high-margin product. They didn't find water. They stole the access to it through legal loopholes. We begin our incision at the corporate boardroom. Look at the strategic memos from Nestlé and Veolia. They rebranded nature as underperforming infrastructure. By lobbying governments to privatize public wells, they effectively turned a free resource into a subscription model for survival. The theft was legal. The strategic error of the public was trusting the sustainability labels. While the marketing showed lush forests and pure springs, the reality was a network of deep-bore pumps sucking the life out of the local villages. The autopsy shows a dry, necrotic landscape hidden behind a plastic label. Dissect the efficiency myth. Corporations claimed that privatization would reduce waste, but the data reveals the opposite. The efficiency was merely financial. They reduced the amount of water people could afford, creating an artificial famine to maintain the high price of the liquid gold on the market. We find evidence of Aquifer Necrosis. Once a source is depleted by industrial pumping, the land collapses. The strategic planners knew this. Their model isn't built on longevity, it's built on extraction and abandonment. They move from one country to the next, leaving dust and broken pipes. Look at the chemical signature of bottled water. The autopsy reveals microplastics and leaching chemicals. The strategy was to convince the world that tap water was toxic, forcing them into a plastic-bound dependency. They created the poison to sell you the clean cure in a plastic bottle. The strategic pivot to water futures on the stock market was the final blow. Water is now traded like oil and gold. Investors bet on droughts because a dry season means a spike in their portfolio. The survival of the human race is now a speculative asset. We find strategic thirst in the developing world. In countries like Pakistan and Mexico, the cost of a gallon of bottled water has surpassed the cost of milk. The corporations have effectively taxed the act of being alive, extracting wealth from the poorest veins of the planet. The autopsy reveals the desalination trap. Companies sell expensive salt removal technology to coastal cities while simultaneously buying up the freshwater sources inland. It is a double-ended profit machine. You either pay for the bottle or you pay for the machine. There is no third option left. We observe ecological embolism in the river systems. Massive dams built by private-public partnerships block the flow to downstream communities unless they pay the toll. The blood of the earth is being clotted by corporate concrete, causing the surrounding ecosystems to wither and die in silence. The greenwashing necrosis is rampant in the PR departments. Companies claim to be water neutral by planting trees in unrelated regions while their factories drain the local water table. It is a mathematical lie, a strategic sleight of hand to keep the regulators from looking too closely. We find evidence of strategic pollution. In some areas, industrial waste is allowed to contaminate public groundwater, making the corporate-owned bottled water the only safe alternative. If you can't clean the water, you profit from the filth. The autopsy reveals a deeply cynical business plan. The infrastructure decay was a deliberate choice. Governments were convinced to stop spending on tap water maintenance, leading to lead pipes and contamination. This forced a massive migration toward the commercial market. The public service died so the private sector could feast on the remains. Look at the data harvesting in the smart water meters. Companies now track your exact usage down to the second. They know when you shower, when you cook, and when you are home. They aren't just selling you water, they are selling your daily habits to advertisers. The licensing of rain is the next frontier. In several states, collecting rainwater is now illegal because it belongs to the utility companies that own the precipitation rights for that region. Even the sky has been privatized. The theft of the commons is almost total. We find market paralysis in the local beverage industries. Small companies cannot compete with the global cartel because the cost of water filtration and access has been artificially inflated. The giants have built a wall of costs around the world's most basic ingredient. Competition is dead. The autopsy reveals the subscription fatigue of life itself. In 2026, many families have water plans similar to cell phone data. If you exceed your limit, the pressure is throttled. Life has become a metered experience, where every sip is a transaction on a corporate ledger. Corporate strategy departments are now focused on post-human extraction. They are investing in atmosphere-to-water technology not to provide for the thirsty, but to ensure they control the very moisture in the air. The final vital sign of a free planet is being flatlined. The heist is absolute. The patient lies on the steel table. The water drop has evaporated, leaving only a white salt residue in the shape of a corporate logo. The liquid gold scandal is the final autopsy of a civilization that forgot that life cannot be owned. The autopsy is complete. We deepen the incision into the bottle obsession. Marketing teams spent billions to convince the consumer that plastic is purity. This strategic psychological warfare turned a free public utility into a status symbol, creating a cycle where we pay to poison the oceans that once fed us. The water scarcity alpha is the industry's secret metric. As water levels drop, the alpha, or the profit potential, rises. Strategic planners at the top of the cartel celebrate droughts as market optimization events, ensuring that their shareholders drink from silver cups while the world goes dry. We find biological leverage in the contracts. In some privatized regions, water is cut off remotely if a household's credit score drops. This is the ultimate weapon of corporate control, the ability to deny the most basic biological necessity to enforce financial compliance in a collapsing economy. Look at the desalination brine necrosis. For every gallon of clean water produced, a toxic, hypersalty byproduct is pumped back into the sea, creating dead zones where no life can exist. The strategy solves a human problem by creating an irreversible ecological catastrophe. It is a fatal trade-off. The strategic thirst of agriculture is the heart of the heist. 70% of global water is used for farming. Corporations buy the water rights and then sell the water back to the farmers at a premium, effectively controlling the entire food chain through a liquid monopoly. We observe infrastructure sabotage in the public sector. The strategy was to allow the tap water systems to become so neglected that the public would beg for private intervention. It is the shock doctrine of the utilities market. Create the crisis to sell the corporate solution. The water footprint of a single microchip is 10 gallons. The strategy of the tech giants is to locate their data centers in water-rich regions, often at the expense of local agriculture. Your digital life is literal thirst for the planet. The autopsy reveals the invisible cost of your connection. We find legal necrosis in international trade agreements. These treaties allow corporations to sue nations if environmental laws protect water from extraction. The legal system has been engineered to prioritize the profit of the shareholder over the survival of the citizen. The law is the necros. The smart water movement is the ultimate surveillance trap. By installing digital meters, they turn a human right into a tracked behavior. They don't just want your money, they want the data of your survival to build a predictive model of the coming resource wars. The liquid gold heist is nearly complete. By 2026, the strategic moat around the world's aquifers is unbreachable. You cannot fight a cartel that owns the very fluid in your cells. The autopsy is over. The patient, common humanity, has been successfully liquidated into a corporate asset. We observe the cloud seeding war. Corporations are now fighting for the rights to the clouds themselves, using silver iodide to force rain onto their private lands while leaving neighboring territories in a strategic drought. They are playing God with the weather to manipulate the market price. The water-energy nexus is the final complication. It takes water to produce energy, and energy to produce water. The cartel owns both ends of the loop. If you can't pay for the light, they cut the water. If you can't pay for the water, you sit in the dark. Look at the luxury ice market. It is a tactical flex of wealth. In a world of thirst, the ultra-rich buy ice cubes harvested from ancient glaciers, shipped across the globe in refrigerated jets. It is the aesthetic of the heist, consuming the last of the pure to signify status. The water refugee crisis is the planned byproduct. By draining the land, they force millions to migrate into urban centers where they can be more easily managed and converted into high-volume, low-wage labor. The thirst is a tool for demographic engineering. The autopsy shows the cold mechanics. We find algorithm-driven irrigation in the corporate farms. Every drop is calculated to maximize the sugar-to-water ratio. They are not growing food, they are growing industrial precursors. The nutrient value of the crops has flatlined, replaced by chemical efficiency and strategic profit margins. The strategic bankruptcy of small-town water systems was the entry point. Once the pipes burst and the budget failed, the private equity firms moved in to rescue the town. They took the assets, raised the prices by 400%, and fired the local staff. It was a hostile takeover. We observe atmospheric mining. New technologies are extracting water from the air, but the patents are held by the cartel. If you want to breathe moisture, you must pay. The very air we share is becoming a metered utility. The colonization of the invisible has truly begun. The water credit system is the final financial leash. Your ability to buy food or fuel is tied to your water score. If you use more than your allotted share, your digital currency is frozen. The liquidity of your money is now tied to the liquidity of the planet. The liquid gold heist is done. We have dissected a civilization that traded its lifeblood for a stock price. The autopsy reveals that the water didn't run out. It was just moved behind a paywall. The planet is still blue, but the blue belongs to them now. The phone on the morgue table finally goes dark. The pulse is gone, the data is locked, and the water is bottled. We are the ghosts in their machines, drinking from empty cups. This is Business Autopsy. The report is finished. R.I.P. Humanity.